Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Nguyen, and the Insider crew.
Welcome everyone to episode 133. We have a special treat for you today, not only because we have a beautiful setup here at the Porsche Experience Center in Atlanta. We have our usual cast of characters. We have Manny, we have Rob, and Damon's at the controls, so he won't actually be on camera. But we have Timo Resch, CEO of Porsche Cars North America, on Porsche Club Insider. Thank you for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here with you. It's the very typical setup, all of us sitting here in front of all of these beautiful color patches. So glad that you took the time to be here. Thanks for being here.
And we were just recently together in Monterey, where you spent some time with us at Works Reunion. So thank you for that.
Hey. We had to get serious about this podcast because normally we talk about who has the best French fries. We have a nice 15-minute discussion about In-N-Out versus McDonald's, but we had to get serious.
Once in a while, we have to have a top-level episode. So you're our top-level episode. No pressure.
I have some kind of an idea who you might have been talking with when it's about French fries from different brands.
So I think we should let our members know you're very much familiar with Porsche Club of America. We've crossed paths before. San Diego, I think, is probably the specific example. But if you could share sort of how you got here.
Yeah, so that's a rather very long or very short story, however we wanna take it. But for me, when I was asked to come back to Porsche and join Porsche Cars North America and this great team here, it was kind of a full circle story for me, because I started out with Porsche as my first job out of university, working in the engineering department and developing cars. So being in Weissach, seeing and driving all of these black test mules in all parts of the world, areas that either it's very hot at or very cold or very dusty and all that kind of stuff. So that was the starting point. And that obviously created a lot of desire and a lot of understanding for the brand. And in the meantime, and I think we can go into detail if you want to, but in the meantime, I did a lot of other things for Porsche, besides testing cars, but also for other brands. And then to be allowed to come back and join this team and actually also reconnect, because I spent 6 years of my time with Porsche Cars North America here in Atlanta. And at that point in time, I also got in contact with the Porsche Club. I saw this kind of great way of appreciating a brand and being an ambassador. Kind of, there's no better ambassador than the Porsche Club in terms of knowing what you're talking about and living a brand to its finest and to its best. And so to reconnect with this brand that I got to know so intensively, not just in Germany, but especially in the States, that was just great for me. What a great opportunity. And I'm very happy that I'm here now and to reconnect also with some of you.
Yeah, it's great for us to have you back and someone at the helm of Porsche Cars North America to be familiar with us, because there's been in the past where someone new may have come in and we kind of have to, I would say, educate them, Manny, on what we're all about. Onboard them, yes. And we didn't have to onboard you. You already knew us. So that's an advantage for us.
Yeah. I think it's also an advantage for me, because to be very, very honest, I think the way the Porsche brand is positioned here in the United States is unique in the entire world. And I think a very high degree of that uniqueness and this very special level that the Porsche brand has in society is thanks to you guys and the Porsche Club, because I think the relationship has been so close. And yes, there are sometimes discussions that we have, but I think that's always a very positive outcome for both sides, because at the end we have one thing, and that's the Porsche brand and the history of the Porsche brand. And especially now after its 75th birthday, there are so many great things that we can look back onto and be proud of what we jointly have continued to develop. And there are so many more great things coming in the future as well. So that's, I think, the cool thing for both of us.
Yes. So for all, I think I can speak for my colleagues here to the left, that we are very fortunate to wake up and be in a brand and in a place that we absolutely love. And coming from the engineering side of the company, is this what you had planned for? Like, did you think that someday you're going to be at the helm here in North America?
Not at all. When I started working in Weissach, that was for me at that point in time a dream come true. Now I would say this job here at PCNA is a dream come true. But at that point in time, growing up in the southern part of Germany, where either people had a connection to Mercedes, being close to Stuttgart, or they had a connection to a big supplier like Bosch, and then also a big company that also has some production site in close to Stuttgart is Audi. So if you had something going for automotive things, you either one of these brands was somehow attracting you. And I started when I was 15, or I think when I was 13, I started modifying motorcycles and mopeds and doing all the things that you're not supposed to do, and you had to make sure that you are not getting caught by the police. But it was always about how much faster can your moped or your motorcycle be compared to the ones of your friends. And that kind of this connection to engines, to technology, somehow created this desire at a very early stage that I want to work for. Best case would be Porsche. And then the dream came true, and to work on the engineering side of Porsche. And at that point in time, it was the early stage when the Cayenne project was not even publicly communicated. So that was a project together with the 997 first generation that I was then working on. And I also had, but not main project, but from time to time I had to do with the Courier GT.
Oh.
So these were kind of, as a 23-year-old, it can't get any cooler than that.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. So here's an observation that Manny, as we were preparing for today, Manny made the observation that you have a master's degree in engineering, and it seems as though many past CEOs also have an engineering background. Is there a correlation there?
I never looked into that. I've no clue. But I think to some degree, either some technical background, I think in being in this industry is definitely helps you to understand the challenges, but also the opportunities within a company like Porsche. And so for that reason, I'm very thankful when we now, especially in the age, because my engineering degree is in electronics, when we now in this age of transforming this entire world into more of a BEV-focused kind of industry. For that reason, it's good to know what's really happening, what's happening in a battery, what's happening in an electric motor, what's happening in control units, because that was what I was focused on, control units for engines, for transmissions, for stability systems, how do they talk to each other, and sitting in a car with a laptop of trying to get all of these things work together and make sure that a gas pedal does give the signal to the engine control unit that the engine revs up and accelerates. And to have a basic understanding how all of these things work, even though they have dramatically, let's say, improved within the last couple of years. But that helps me when I now talk to the engineers and I go back to Weissach and we start arguing about, do we need this, do we need that?
Back in my day, the electronics, we used to do it this way.
I always catch myself maybe saying something like that. No, but I try to always stay focused, obviously, on what the desire of the American customers is and how can we make sure that future products have this still in their DNA, even though new technology brings new opportunities. And so for that reason, I think that it's a good starting point, but it's definitely not a requirement. At the end, it's about your love for the brand and your desire to be connected and surrounded by a great bunch of people. And I think at the end, it's a huge team effort.
Yeah, and I think we would all agree that having someone at the helm that has that background and has that passion for vehicles, and it makes a difference. It clearly makes a difference.
I always like to think that Porsche started off as an engineering firm before they started making cars. And as I've studied CEOs, I said, there's got to be something, the fact that all of Mr. Bluma, he has an engineering degree as well. And there's got to be something in the thought process of an engineer that may be different than a marketing person. And I like that because Porsches to me are very engineering based, if you will. There's no fluff. It has to be on there for a reason, and it's going to improve the performance of the car. And I've always admired the fact that they have engineers at the top.
Yeah, and it's no surprise or secret that I think a lot of our members are either engineers and or tech, surrounded by tech, and they definitely see the benefits of what we're doing here. And let's talk a little bit.
And maybe let me add one thing, because on the one side it's a tech-driven and fact-driven company.
Yeah.
But I think what the Porsche brand has achieved, like maybe only very few other brands, is that it has become an aspirational brand where you don't have to have this technology connection to still have a high desire for the brand. And I think when we now think about the customer group as of today, and when we think also about the target groups that we are addressing, it's for some people it's the convincing factor that, oh, this makes you faster on the racetrack, or that makes you a more capable driver. But it also creates kind of a mystique and a kind of an association of a brand that people want to be associated with, even though they might not be driven by the technology facts, but they're driven by the mindset that these people share, and this kind of aura and this kind of surrounding that they provide is something that I want to be associated with, because not in a geeky way, but in a cool way. It's a tribe, it's a community, it's a family. And to belong to a family, I think that's ultimately one of the deep desires of everyone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people recognize, Porsche and the familiarities of being technical, but then how do we bring people that, like you said, may not necessarily be completely technical, but make them feel welcome and not intimidated by our brand and the vehicles that we covet. So talk a little bit about, this is almost your anniversary, I believe, at the helm, right?
Yeah, not quite yet.
Yeah.
So I started November 1st, and I still remember because it was in this hall, I think at the end of this section over there, when we had Detlef van Platen here, and it was a very nice moment, and a very moment that I still vividly remember, of arriving here and then being welcomed by the team. So that was very special, but it has been like 10 months now. And looking back, a lot of things have happened in this very short period of time, but at the same time, so many things still are about to happen in the future. So for me, it has been very fulfilling so far to reconnect with a lot of people, to also reconnect with a lot of customers and dealers that I still know from these days.
Would you be able to share a little bit of your day in the life? What's it like to be at the helm?
Of course. To some degree, and I think that what makes life so interesting, it's really difficult to plan a day. A day can be sometimes unpredictably crazy because of requests that either we have from within the organization or from our colleagues from the headquarters in Zuffenhausen. But generally speaking, there are a couple of key areas. The one thing that's very close to my heart is working on our strategy. What do we as Porsche Cars North America, representing the Porsche brand here in the United States, what do we stand for? How can we assure on the one side that we keep the aspiration and the connectedness of the brand with people and with society, while we produce a product that no one needs and that also is, relatively speaking, a rather pricey product. And I think that's an important kind of very fine line that we have to make sure that we walk on this line also going into the future. Also working on the strategy of us as an organization, how can we support customers but also our dealer network in the best possible way so that they can serve our customers. Also strategy in terms of what's happening in the next 5 to 10 years. How's this whole, at some point it will happen, at least that's what it looks like. How is this transition towards electrification going to happen? And what does it mean? How can we maintain our emotional connection to our customers while changing slowly but surely into the electric world? And all of that is kind of the strategic side, but on a very operational side, next to customer interaction, customer letters, some raving about the experience, some others also not being happy. That's also something that I try to take care of together with the team. But the very operational things, so obviously trying to, in a very careful but very clearly way, making sure that the vehicles that we bring to the country are always matched with the demand. The original idea of Ferry Porsche to always produce one car less than what the market needs. That's something that where a fine balance and a good relationship with our dealers to find a gauge for what is the market really asking for and how can we fine-tune all of that, and making sure that at the same time enough spare parts are flowing into our warehouses so that the dealers have parts to fix cars. There are sometimes logistic challenges of getting not just cars but also parts here, and all of these things. First of all, I'm blessed to have a really great team that is working on that, but I like to get involved also in the daily stuff. So I want to make sure where does the heart of the organization beat, and to also identify where are maybe improvements or changes needed to help the organization, but also everyone that touches and feels Porsche feel like, oh, they care.
Yeah.
On the note of a typical day, by the time it's 6 a.m. here, it's usually around noon in Germany. Do you tailor your days in deference to do you get up extremely early? How does that work?
It looks like you have had a peek into my calendar because some days they start at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm a very big fan of making sure that you have time in person with the team members at PAG. But at the same time, and that was before I started, a clear agreement I had with Detlef was I'm not starting this role and moving, not just me, but the entire family. My wife and I, we have 3 boys and we have a dog. So I don't move them all to Atlanta for then to sit in an airplane every other week and be in Germany 2 times or 3 times a month. So that was kind of my agreement that yes, from time to time I'll just participate via Teams in our calls that we have with the other markets and with the central side. And even though that requires to stand up, wake up very early, and that's a rather harsh wake-up call if your wake-up call is at 2:30. But I much rather do that from time to time instead of flying over there all the time, because otherwise you lose the connection to the market. You don't know what's happening here, what's happening with the team, with the PCNA team. And then, yes, it also happens that I have to go back, and sometimes more frequently, sometimes less frequently, back to Weissach, back to Zuffenhausen and talk with the team there. But yes, there are some early morning shifts. And then the team around me reminds me at 3 in the afternoon, now it's good enough. Now you probably should leave because you have had a very short night before. Yeah. But in the end, I think it's a good balance of getting things done, sometimes early in the morning, but also finding enough time. And I'm a very big fan of that, and also want to make sure that our team does the same thing. You have to have the right balance between spending time for work and at work. Because if you love what you do as a job, there's a high risk that you spend unnecessarily many hours in the office or on a topic. But at the same time, you also have to go back home, and your friends, your relatives, your family that is important to you, they also should not just get a fair share, but a majority of kind of your attendance. And I think that ultimately also makes you, especially if you're working on this day in, day out, also a better person at work.
Wow.
Your wife better not.
I was about to say,
if your wife listens to this episode,
that looked at our schedules too.
That hit home.
Yeah.
But if you ask her, she's probably not signing. This Timo can achieve all of that. But at least it's my aim.
What we always are impressed about, and we really only see sort of the North American side of your initiatives, the shadow that Porsche North America, Porsche casts, the wide breadth. I mean, you can talk about the cars, you can talk about the PECs, you can talk about the parts, you can talk about customer experiences, you can talk about the letters that come into you asking for why they can't get this, that, or the other. That's a very long list for you to be able to manage, and you gave props to your team here, which I know is a very lean, efficient machine here, and to be able to coordinate that. Had you come from a similar sort of setup where you had to make do with what you have here?
Yeah, frankly speaking, the last 2 roles still with a company headquartered in Munich were kind of similar, but from the headquarter perspective, overseeing sales and marketing on a worldwide scale. Obviously not being in the market, so it was always slightly disconnected from the customer side compared to what I also had experienced here at PCNA before. But this overload of information and too many things to really 100% be assured that at the end of the day you have taken care of everything that came in or that was needed to be taken care of, and to have this on the one side clear way of saying, okay, that's important to me, and this is something that has to get done today or has to get done by the end of this week. Sometimes this is steered but by what we get in terms of requests from Stuttgart, but a lot of these things obviously then my, let's say, gut feeling, my trying to gauge, this is something we take care of now, this is something that we as an organization have maybe a couple of weeks to take care of, or it's something that is more mid and long term. But that's, I think, the basic requirement. Otherwise, you would probably kill yourself. Every single email is like,
There's so much.
there are 7 more emails
Yeah.
or 70 more emails, whatever, that I didn't read. And I think to find the freedom, and when I leave the office, I don't feel like, I'm carrying a bag of things with me, but I'm like, okay, I did the things where I prioritized, and I felt like this is something I have to take care of.
Would you share? We know not everything is what we say unicorn and rainbows, right? There are difficult things and difficult decisions that you have made for the past 10 months. Is there a challenge or something that you want to share that maybe you weren't expecting?
Yeah, for sure. If within the first 90 days you experience something which was unfortunate, but we had this a customs-related issue where mid of January, all of a sudden we had to stop the wholesale of almost 80% of our model line to our dealers for a part that needed to be replaced.
Yeah.
And then for a couple of weeks, we had only a very limited number of vehicles that we brought to our dealers. And at the end, yes, we are the bearer of the brand Porsche here in the United States, but our main reason for existence is that we are importing and selling cars to the dealers.
Sure.
That's the bottom line.
Bottom line, yeah.
And if the bottom line thing doesn't work because the cars are stuck in ports and the boats that come from Germany over had to be stopped because there's no more room at the ports, that's kind of the very basic, like, biggest problem that you can imagine.
Yeah.
And one thing that was really interesting, even though it was a big challenge, was to see how very kind of upbeat and energized the team was when this whole thing developed in the month of January, and how extremely quickly I saw, this team knows how to take care of things. And they immediately started coming up with ideas. Okay, now we have to do this. Now we have to do that. We have to stop here. Production will be influenced there. So it was almost like you could feel like, in a very awkward way, maybe an enjoyment and fun. There's a really big challenge, and the team wanted to get on it. They wanted to fix it. They wanted to make sure how can we as quickly as possible come back to normal operations, make sure cars flow into the market and come to our dealers. So a big challenge, but to experience the team, how it did here, how they handled it, how they fixed it with all of the things that had to be attached to that was amazing. And that was a very intensive, but also very immediate way to bond with everyone here and to figure out, okay, in such a crisis situation, how do we hold together as a team?
Yeah, and something like that is not something you could practice to prepare for, right?
Yeah,
it's
not really. Maybe to some degree, the really obviously very awkward times of the COVID pandemic and also the shortage of semiconductors to some degree in the years after.
Right.
I think there was interruptions in the supply chain to some degree had become something that at least we had to deal with, and the teams, whatever manufacturer, whatever OEM, whatever industry had to deal with. But it was to some degree a little bit known, but the dimension that we had then to experience here was a different world. But to see that this was something that obviously impacted our quarter one, but to see that the quarter two of this year, the team, the dealers, the organization excelled, and we had the best quarter in the history of Porsche Cars North America.
I have a note here to congratulate you on that.
That was something where you could really see this is kind of what the Porsche brand is about, what this experience is about. It's kind of you're in there and you wanna perform.
Can we talk about more strategies as we know of the announcement for 2025, the last year of the gas-powered Boxster Cayman and the electric versions?
Yeah, to some degree, this is a little bit of public knowledge, but since we did not really officially show anything that is a successor, it's at the same time it's far away. So when we think about how long we're gonna sell the existing 718 Macan and Boxster, that will go also well into 2026. So from my personal point of view, it's still far out there, but at the same time we prepare the organization for it. So when you think about this transition that our governments around the world have taken the decision for us that this is the right thing to do, we are of the strong belief to offer choice to our customers, especially here in the United States, is the most important thing to do. And being a small and nimble sports car manufacturer as we are, it's impossible to have every single model with every single drivetrain.
Right.
And for that reason, the strategy that has been derived, I think, is quite intriguing to say, on the one side, the 911 is the core of the brand. It has everything can somehow be linked to a 911, ultimately to a 356 and to the very early cars, but that's kind of at the center of us.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, to keep that as long as legally possible, and as long as the customers demand it, with an internal combustion engine is the first right decision. And then all other decisions had to be taken kind of surrounding that basic belief. And to say, yes, also the sports cars, the two-door sports cars, at some point will be electrified. And how can we do that? Can we have a second electric model line of 911 right next to the existing ICE 911? Doesn't really make sense. So to convert the Boxster Cayman family in their next generation into electric, and then have an electric open top and hard top sports car with that platform, and at the same time to have the 911 continue to do what it has been doing in the past, I think that's the best possible way to show and to also have a proof point to our enthusiastic Porsche community that yes, also two-door sports cars can and will be emotional connections to you as a driver, and we will show this with the upcoming next generation, but we will also enjoy in the meantime the existing ones.
Right.
Yeah.
What I loved about that, I read up on your recent interview in Monterey. Probably the two themes of that interview was the fact that options and you're listening to the customer. And I think so many other manufacturers don't necessarily put that as a priority.
But I think it has always been part of the Porsche DNA to build something that our customers wish for. On the one side, yes, the initial thought of building a sports car is maybe not something that people needed. They were not asking for it, but as soon as they saw it, they realized that's something that I really want to have.
Yeah.
And this basic belief still holds true until today. And you see that with our customization options. If you look at our configurator, and I assume that many of you also listening know very well all of the little corners of the configurator where you can do crazy things. And if you're not satisfied with that, you can even go more crazy with things that have then a rather lengthy process, but then you have really something that is custom tailored to you, all the way to the very, very top, which we also showed in Monterey, in 993 Speedster that never really existed, besides, let's say, two very special cars before. But everyone that gets into a Porsche somehow has this desire to be associated with a brand where individualization and having special color, interior, equipment options come true, and you don't just get something because it's sitting on a dealer lot. And I think that's ultimately something that will be even more important in the future going forward. And to have this flexibility in our production process, which it takes a lot of time to get something like that going. Every single option that you put in there is obviously a multiplier in terms of the number of variations that you have to build. You have to have your factory team being trained on all of these different variations. That takes a lot of dedication, time, and actually is also costly. But ultimately it's worthwhile to fulfill their individual dreams or the customer's individual dreams by having all of these options available.
What people don't often realize is these options represent a logistical challenge for production.
Yeah.
And it could be as simple as the thread that they're going to use for deviated stitching to a bumper style, because it's not all done in one place. There's multiple partners that are involved, and to get it through that logistics, just to get it there, and also, by the way, when it gets there, it's got to match. It's got to have the same durability, the expectations of performance. It's incredible. If you've never been on a tour in Stuttgart or at Leipzig, to see how this complex puzzle pieces come together to create the beautiful vehicles that we covet, it's something to see.
And if you start something from scratch today on a white sheet of paper, I'm not quite sure if you would really come up, if you were to set this goal, we want to be as flexible in terms of the production and having all these options. Everyone with a little bit of let's say financial and logistics background would say, let's not go there. Let's not do that. That's
too complicated.
Too complicated.
They would all say, keep it simple.
Keep it simple. 5 colors, 5 options. That's it. So we are at the at least for the kind of volume bracket that we are in, I think we're at the very other end of the spectrum. But it's something that the company has always been doing, and
but
we will be doing.
That's the one thing that makes us so special.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously a labor of love, but it's profitable as well. But it gives people the ability to access the legacy and the heritage of the brand. And I don't know of anybody else that's doing it. It's amazing. We're looking at these things right now, and all these wonderful legacy colors, the Papita interior trim that were so much part of the Porsche DNA from 40, 50, and even 60 years ago. My assumption is that it's more than just the profit motive that drives Porsche's desire to do this.
There are lots of people that have a huge passion for the Porsche brand, that work within the factory, within the individualization department, that come up with ideas which are not necessarily just driven for the sake of, we can make more money. It's just kind of, this could be done, and it would be really something that I would love to have. And then it's like, okay, but let's now try to make it so that we can have others enjoy that as well. So these are motivators that I think continue to generate ideas which are more unique and also true to the DNA of Porsche than maybe with some others.
I always wonder if the pandemic, there was a benefit to the pandemic. It was that before the pandemic, Porsche would say to us, why don't your members want to order cars? They want to go to the dealer lot and buy what's on
Immediate gratification.
Immediate gratification, exactly. And where in Europe they would explain, like in Germany, they come, they order the car, they see all the options, then they make it the way they want it, customized to them. But in the U.S. it wasn't the case, but the pandemic almost forced us into that. Mm-hmm. And now I think more and more people have seen so many options and how they can customize it. We get calls at the office all the time asking, do you know how many cars they built with this option, this option, this option? And I always tell them, well, Porsche doesn't release that information, but with all the options you listed, odds are you may have one of one. Because in that combination of interior and exterior and wheels and so on, and the fact that they don't produce a lot of these cars, you could very well be a very, very, very limited car.
Yeah, it's a huge and welcome change in North America, which in years past had tended to be very conservative, lots of seal gray, Arctic silver, guards red, Grand Prix white, black, those sorts of colors. What we're seeing now is really quite wonderful, to Manny's point.
And I think it's also, from top to bottom, from AG to PCNA and into the dealers, this philosophy and embracing the fact that you could possibly, like Manny said, build these one-of-one cars. As we transition to BEV and EV, I know hybrids and Taycans have been in dealers' facilities for many years now. Is there a ramp up or gearing up of additional EV responsibilities for dealers that they have to prepare for?
First of all, I think at the end it's all driven by customer demand, and that's the reason I think, as I said before, choice is really important. And our dealers are also, they know what's the philosophy of Porsche, and it has always been to never stand still, always evolve, always, let's say, look into the future. And also our dealers embrace that, and they know that the electric future is happening. And so to embrace it, and I think we have done it in a great way with the Taycan being a real pioneer in the space and creating a car. If you were just to imagine what could a 911 with 4 doors and an electric drivetrain, because that was the only thing that was set, look like, and they created the Taycan. So in terms of setting the standard very early, a fantastic job. I really admire everyone that was part of that decision process. And to show that an electric car can be emotional, not just in terms of it looks, but also can be true to the Porsche DNA in terms of what it feels like when you drive it. And the same thing is also going to happen with the Macan. In just a couple of days, the Macan Electric will be available at our dealers. And everyone that we had from our dealer staff go through a training that we just recently conducted, so that all the dealer personnel understand and feel what the Macan Electric that we will sell alongside with the existing Macan ICE version feels like. They're like, oh, first of all, it feels like a Macan. And that's the most important thing. It's not about what drivetrain do you want to have. You want to have a Porsche in the first place, and then you pick kind of what is the segment that you're in. And then maybe based on your personal preferences or on your personal driving situation, it makes more sense for you to have an electric vehicle, or it makes more sense to have a plug-in hybrid, or in the case of the Macan, an internal combustion engine. So it's not you're driven by one thing, but at the same time, the dealers know that this is part of the future, and they're very keen. And I saw a lot of our dealers that I attended this event with being positively surprised and satisfied that ultimately it's a Porsche.
Mm-hmm.
It's not sacrificing anything. And I think that's really important to have everyone on board. Obviously, they have been gearing up with Taycan already in terms of having charging equipment, having all the necessities being done that you have to have as a dealership to be ready. At the end, always being also ready to understand and listen to the customers. Nothing would be more awkward, and maybe also would be misleading to talk someone into a drivetrain choice.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really depends on what is your personal driving pattern, what kind of a
Where your housing, your availability to plug.
do you
in.
have a charge at home?
Yeah.
Do you have a charge at work? What do you want to do? Do you have this desire to be road trip ready every single second, or is it really something that a second car that you have in your fleet can do? And depending on the area that you live in, I think yes, the charging infrastructure is one of the, let's say, the things that isn't at the top of mind of a lot of our customers, but it's evolving, and we are, I think, increasing with the number of charge point providers that we will have end of this year. Charge Point will also be part of the Porsche charging network next to Electrify America, that is already a partner of ours. And then end of next year, also the Tesla network will be accessible for Porsche electric vehicles. So all of a sudden, the reason to say there's no charging around, because you might be limited to just one supplier, is not something that should be holding you back any longer. So, but people have to see and feel it first, and then they feel like, okay, I think I could give it a try.
Yeah, and we talked about this early, how kind of history repeats itself. When 356 went to 911, when the Cayenne was introduced, or when air-cooled went to water-cooled, there's this natural, not wanting to accept this new technology, but once you experience it, once you've done it, you've lived with it, then your mindset, then you can be open to what's the possibility. And we talked about having the opportunity to drive a Taycan for a few days at Porsche Parade, and charging at Buc-ee's, getting to Buc-ee's with 4 miles left, and it's accurate because we got to Buc-ee's with 4 miles left. We plugged it in, went to go get a smoked beef sandwich or something like that, and by the time we got
maybe
back,
not just one.
yeah. He knows me. He knows me so well. He knows not just one. And by the time we walked back, we were like good to go. And so again, when I talk to people that are so adamant and very, how would I say, maybe a bit closed-minded about it, is like, talk to me once you've experienced it, because without the experience, then you really don't have a leg to stand on.
To me, it's very exciting because we're at the cusp of a fairly seismic change when it comes to automobiles, and one that I very much look forward to, because electric to me is just so less maintenance, so less moving parts, with so much more performance. And having driven a Taycan and the Turbo GT Taycan, it is pure Porsche.
Yeah.
I never said, well, this would be better if it made noise. It was just so freaking fast that, and the handling, everything about it was, there was no doubt I was in a Porsche.
Yeah.
And you said something key earlier, and that we all know, but for those that are listening, is if it's going to have the Porsche crest on it, it's going to be a Porsche, and it's going to have the same history, the background, the engineering behind it, and probably where most or a lot of manufacturers don't continue, because you talked about how maybe the accountants would then change the way we do things if they measured it just in that way, and that has to do with motorsports.
Yeah.
The technical lab that Porsche continues to invest in.
Yeah. And you are touching a topic that is also very close to me, because the starting point, and as of today, I think we are still showing that we are very seriously about it, is to start on the racetrack, develop technologies. And even though Formula E, I think, is underrated in the United States, I think it's really interesting racing. It's a new and different way of racing, but it shows you that whatever level of technology you have to also adapt your racing. And as of today, there's no battery yet that you can just throw into an existing regulated racing. So to create a unique racing series made sense. And with the Drivers' Championship title for Porsche driver. I think we have shown that we are participating quite successfully. But to do that and simultaneously showing that the in-between technology, which is hybrid for a certain time being, which we have in the 963 with Penske as our partner, and the Porsche Penske 963 being very successfully at IMSA, but also the WEC racing grounds. You see that this is where we come from. This is where we also want to prove that we are still out there and we still show performance. And we also learn a whole lot. And that's the most important part. So the race engineering team always has a feedback loop into the serial development team in Weissach. And so Vlacht and Weissach sometimes is like, oh, that's something very different and unique. But they can see each other. So it's not that they're too far away. But sometimes it helps to have a little bit distance.
And for our listeners, Flock is where the race team or Motorsports is still in the Weissach property, but I think they consider themselves different, being at the far end.
Unique department, and a department that has very special objectives.
Yes, yes. Thanks for clarifying that. Obviously, not everyone knows about these very specific kind of terms, but that is exactly how you described it.
We, PCA, next year, we will be celebrating our 70th anniversary. And of course, you all will be a part of it. I know we feel very welcome when we participate in the International President's Meeting. But can you share, how does PAG or Porsche Cars North America, see PCA as being part of the equation for everything that you do?
I've seen other car brands and how they interact with car clubs, and Porsche can be so incredibly proud to have such an international network. Now, also talking about the other clubs around the world that are so actively involved, and to see that this is not just a one-way street of appreciation for the brand, but also Porsche centrally understanding this and working actively together with Porsche clubs, their presidents, inviting them, getting to know each other. This is something that I have not seen any other brand that does something like that. So I think there's a mutual understanding that this is what makes the Porsche brand so special. And at the end, having, I think, was it 130,000?
165,000.
165,000. Oh, it's even more than that. So 165,000 members. This is just such an incredible, on the one side, responsibility for us at brand, but also an honor to know that the brand has such a followership. This is unique and fantastic, and obviously to have with Detlef someone that knows the US market very well, Detlef van Platen, our board member for sales and marketing, who knows about how special PCA is and how close the relationship is. And sometimes it feels like you have, especially when it's about designing some very specific cars that might be also associated with anniversaries. I think you guys have more trips to Weissach and to design those cars than I do.
I don't have my own hard card yet, but I'm trying to get that. But we certainly appreciate the relationship, and a lot of other car clubs that don't have the ability to be as close with the manufacturer, but yet have that respectful difference of what we do every day versus what you do every day. But I hope you know that we are always here as ambassadors to carry on, events, spread the word, try to get folks to understand, what's our passion all about, and how this is something that is truly unique for a manufacturer to have. There's other car clubs, obviously, but I think the way we do it and the way we interact together, the way we have feedback, the possibility of providing feedback to you and possibly affecting what may come out down the road. Not a lot of other car clubs and or owners of other makes have
I
that.
always hear that because of online, the car clubs are dying. And I always say, well, at least for us, it's quite the opposite, because online doesn't give you the experience. And we offer the experience that there's something to do with your Porsche, that if you are an enthusiast or just if you were aspirational to own this Porsche, and this is what you wanted all your life, that there's other people that understand your passion and how happy and proud you are to have this car, and who will share that excitement with you, and that's PCA. You'll be among family of crazy people who love these cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the family within the family.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Now, within the family, you have the two-door members of the family, and then you have the four doors, and then you have the various powertrains, so to speak. We're all inclusive with our club. We welcome any Porsche owner, no matter what car they drive. And as a car club, I think that's a little bit easier to say you're welcome.
Yeah.
From a business side, I have to imagine the strategies in which you sell to a two-door enthusiast versus to someone that might be a four-door enthusiast, or maybe someone that's new to the brand. Can you kind of share with us? Do you segment how you approach potential customers, or is it treated the same? How does that work?
At the end, you're right. There's a very specific need to either get a 911 Targa versus getting a Cayenne with a six-cylinder engine. So there are different needs that are behind that, and we are also seeing that a lot of our customers don't just have one Porsche; they have multiple Porsches, because they are
That's our hope. That's our hope.
as it is ours, because there are different needs for a car. And I think this kind of a culture is especially embedded in the US mindset, much more so than it is in some other mindsets, especially compared to the Europeans. But for sure, there are different ways of talking to these people in terms of what kind of communication, what kind of also events do we host. And on the one side, to be in a surrounding like a motorsport experience, to be either here in the United States on our home soil in Daytona, or in a couple of weeks here at Road Atlanta when the IMSA GTP category will come to its finish. That's obviously something where Porsche customers that have a motorsport DNA, typically some connection more to our two-door cars, will attend or will be informed about. Maybe do other events like road and drives, and we very intensively collaborate with our dealers to make sure that we do activities where people can really get behind the wheel. Then we obviously also want to give people the opportunity that might not have had kind of this desire or need to be a part of a Porsche and drive a Porsche, because they have been happy with their other SUV that might have been driving. But as soon as they get behind the wheel, they all of a sudden get infected.
Yeah.
And they feel like, oh, this is different. I didn't expect it. And then it's less about how much cargo room do you have. All of a sudden, people that might not even have thought about differences in the steering feedback before, all of a sudden they're like, somehow it's different. I could feel it right away. They might not be able to describe it technically, but they feel that there's something different. And so even a customer for a Cayenne or for a Macan, all of a sudden they fall into love with Porsche, and then if we do everything right, they will actually never go back.
Right, and that's exactly it. I explain that to a lot of folks that as we go to friends' parties or families, and we're all kind of the Porsche guy or gal at the party, and they don't necessarily understand it, but you give them the keys and let them go drive it, and they don't know the technical why. Yeah. But once they've driven it, they go, oh, that's very much different from the car that I drive, right? Yeah. And you all do such a great job in creating events, experiences to get people behind the wheel. But as you know, today, you also have this huge opportunity to reach out to folks digitally. How do you describe what we just did with a physical hand the keys, go for the drive, but in the digital world?
Yeah. And I think that's where creating moments that become memorable in a digital way, but that are true to the brand, are really important. I think you could try to associate yourself with something where you're not quite sure, is that something that really sticks with the brand or is unique, but with our overall campaign that we also use in terms of our storyline, Art of Dreams, that allows you on the one side to create a lot of really great moments where people associate the Porsche brand with something that is maybe not just the automotive context, and creates also visually very, very stunning and very also eye-catching emotional moments. Yes. And that's something that I think is really important. And it has to also have a steady and constant language, fit and feel, but it also has to be something that is not interchangeable. And it has to somehow always have a connection back to the Porsche DNA. And I think that's special even in the digital world. So there it's not really that different. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't make itself feeling it's just glued on the top of the surface.
Yeah.
It has to be rooted in the brand. Genuine.
Yeah.
And then I think it comes across as something that's a cool digital extension of the brand and something that gets me excited or gets me interested about this brand.
I think that's what we try to do as the club as well. It's no secret that if we didn't have the digital investment that we do and have, we don't have the budget that you have, but we do try to share photos and videos that will get in the front of eyes of people that may be enthusiasts or just happen to kind of click through and they go, these people look like they're having fun. Oh, this car looks incredible. And then they tie that little experience with, oh, it was a Porsche, it was with Porsche Club of America, and maybe it's for them. Then when they are in the market, they'll think of us. But let's say a friend of theirs starts talking about, I'm thinking of buying a new car, or I like a Porsche. They'll think back to their little personal experience, and then we hope it all kind of comes full circle, and they go, okay, if you're buying it, then be together with Porsche Club of America. It's a different way than our traditional word of mouth. I think that's still the most strong way of getting folks into the club, but it adds to it all. And if we didn't have that digital component, we too would probably be in the same boat of being a struggling car club, but we've invested in that. And then to see everything that you're doing, it just makes us feel like, okay, we're doing the right thing because they're doing it too. just to use you as the marker, so to speak. Yeah.
And to see that this direction is not the only one. I think, yes, there has been a quite dramatic shift to spend a lot of the available budgets, which never can be enough, into digital marketing. I think it's very important to have also a strong foothold in the area of experiential. People have to see, touch, feel the brand. They might get informed in a very first glimpse somewhere on their phone or some other digital interaction. But in the end, it's about how do they feel when they get into real connection with the brand. And we are also there trying new things, or something that we have been done for 2 or 3 years, like when we went to South by Southwest. And the brand Porsche became something that might not be kind of the standard thing. There's a car and there's someone that explains to you something about the car. It's more about emotional connections between you and something unexpected. And to not just be an interchangeable brand, but someone that provides opportunities to learn for yourself and maybe get yourself excited for something that you didn't know that you need or you want to have before.
And I'm sure you reached people that were high fashion, music. Your brand is there when they're having this fun and experiencing it. You also had seminars where you tied the fashion and how it's with the cars and with the community as well. And you're there on their turf, so to speak.
And that was the same element when we did a connection this year with the Met Gala.
Yes.
Also something to some degree unexpected.
My wife was very disappointed that we didn't get tickets to the Met Gala.
And just to be on the safe side, also for the record, on the real Met Gala, like where you go inside, even we were not in there.
Oh, wow.
But we were surrounded, and we were, let's say, part of everything that is part of this overall bigger theme of the Met Gala. And we had people that obviously were proudly associated with Porsche also in there. But they're creating images and creating moments, digital moments that can be shared, which are so unique and so tie into the world of people that maybe, and we are always talking about the opportunity that more females also are potentially interested in the Porsche brand, which they might not know about, but to reach them in moments that are closely connected to things that they are interested in is definitely one of these ways where it might be unexpected, but if you do it in the right Porsche way, and I think the way we showed up in New York for the Fashion Week was exactly the right way, then you can create something that lasts and feels like it's connected to the brand.
And we always talk about growing up where we had this particular moment or experience that planted the seed of the goal of having a Porsche. For me, it was the poster or the Porsche I saw in a movie, or it was my book cover that I had. With digital, you're casting a much larger net. So hopefully all these little impressions, millions and billions of impressions that you're putting out there, it's going to come home someday, and those people will be like us that got the car because that seed was planted at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
So my last question to you, actually, I got to do a little bit of housekeeping here before I ask the last question. And that is, if you're not signed up and you don't get e-brake news, performance news, or Mart Fresh news, head over to PCA.org and sign up for free there. If you're looking for PCA Insider t-shirts, mugs, and such, head over to the web store. And if you'd like a PCA Insider decal, just send us message at podcast@pca.org. Of course, we'd love it if you would like, comment, and subscribe. We're just crested over 70,000 subscribers. No, 97,000 subscribers. 97,000 subscribers. We're getting so close to the silver plaque. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Maybe you're
where's the 100?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say all the time. These guys, they're looking on eBay to see if they can buy a used one to just shut me up because I talk about this silver plaque all the time. But to close it up, I have to assume that you drive a Porsche as a daily, and then the next question would be, what is that daily? And then the next question would be, do you have a Porsche that you're chasing after?
Yeah, I'm obviously lucky enough in my position to be allowed to drive a lot of Porsches, but my daily driver is a Taycan, and with a 3-seat option on the rear bench, and
nice.
With a in the Cross Turismo version, so that you can also put the dog in the back. So
Very
our
nice.
Taycan is the 5 passenger and dog family kind of car.
Do you have a charger at home, or do you charge it here?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Right. And I have to know, I'm a dog person as well. What kind of dog do you have?
It's a golden retriever.
Okay.
Oh.
It's like a
Sizable.
90-pound guy.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
Is it an American dog or German dog? Did it come over with you?
Yeah, it's a German dog.
Oh,
we
wow.
got him in 2019 when he was really little. So I'm not a dog person. So that was the odd part. So that was before
Now
COVID.
you
So
are, though.
I'm every single morning from 6 to 6:30. I'm a dog guy. You know?
Dog life.
That's the benefit of cats.
Yeah.
That's dog
My
life.
dog is the unofficial dog of PCA. So.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's a 2019 we got him, and he was a dog that apparently at the very little stage that he was at, later on we were told you should have looked at his paws because he's now over-dimensionally large for a golden retriever, and that's the reason you have to have a decent-sized trunk to have him fit in there. And he doesn't like driving in cars, but since we are now driving Porsches, he's a much happier dog in the car.
Smart dog. And how about a Porsche that you might be chasing down?
I had a very, very special Porsche moment just a couple of weeks ago, and someone that is also close to the Porsche and PCNA, Rory Ingram.
Yes,
He allowed me to drive a 356 Speedster.
Oh.
And I have to tell you, I've never had the chance to drive this car before. And it was one of these moments. I was not particularly chasing, but it was just an opportunity that he provided very generously. And I drove the car maybe for an hour.
And you're done.
It was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, it is so essential. It is so
Pure.
bare and pure that this drive definitely somehow changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And when I got out of the car, I got into a race version of a Cayman and had the chance to be on the racetrack. So these two worlds of Porsche coming together just within 1 hour, that was a very special thing. So thanks, Rory.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, for sure.
He knew exactly what he was doing. Hi, Rory. All right. Well, thank you so much. I've got any other questions before we wrap it up?
No.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Grab that VIN, head over to PCA.org, and we'll set you up. Now, if you don't have a Porsche, we have the test drive program. Again, we can set you up, open some resources to you, make sure we get the proper Porsche on your driveway or in your garage. Remember to follow our podcast Instagram page, behind the scenes photos and videos, Porsche Club Insider, one word. Send us a message if you have a question. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.